Good morning, everyone. Niles Benghauser with TechStop here, and today we're going to continue our discussions about cybersecurity and how the lack of cybersecurity can affect your business on many different fronts. So today we're going to be talking with Daniel Hickey of Hickey Marketing Group, where we're going to talk about the website and web domain aspect of cybersecurity and some things that you need to be doing to protect your business on that front. So we will be right back, and we'll jump into it. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So we'll just jump into it. If we want to start off, you can introduce yourself, your business, and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Daniel Hickey, founded Hickey Marketing Group, man, almost 14 years ago now. Time flies. We started out as a full-service ad agency and marketing firm. And what we ended up kind of quickly figuring out is that everyone's marketing has to be completely dialed in, whether it's, the logo, the tagline, the slogan, all that other fun stuff. And from there, a lot of our clients requested that we get into the web development aspect of things. Even though they had to kind of drag us in kicking and screaming just because that's not really what we started out as. So we really love the messaging, the concepts, the TV commercials, the radio ads, the stuff that, really has that creative bent to it. But when a lot of our clients started looking at the various ways that their website wasn't able to tell the story, even when we gave them the font package, we gave them the images, we gave them the messaging, they were like, man, we really need one agency to be dialing this in. So we got into web about a decade ago now. And man, that's become about 85% of our business since, because what we realized is most web development agencies are really good at the programming. They're really good at the coding. But the storytelling aspect of a website is really what makes it successful or not. So from there, we got brought in, had many conversations with you because, you and your team are the best that we've worked with when it comes to the IT side of things and, keeping clients secure. So it's funny how we've had a lot of conversations about cybersecurity when we started out as just an ad agency. So yeah, it's just become kind of a prerequisite. So I don't care who you are right now. You're a marketer and you're also in security, which is interesting. We didn't ask for it, but that's the world we moved into. So that's kind of a little bit of background.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing, and I think pretty much anyone in the tech industry, regardless of where you're sitting, whether you're a programmer doing marketing and web development like you, or more on the IT support side like we are, things are changing. Cybersecurity is a must, regardless of what aspect you're dealing with.
Big time. Yeah, even for employees. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's one of the things that you and your team have done for some of our clients is actually testing the employees, because you can have a great system set up, but if the employees don't have the proper training, they're in trouble as well. So, I mean, even if you're, a receptionist to janitorial, if you have an email account with that company, you're part of the cybersecurity team. So there's a lot of things that have been changing now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what we've been talking about a lot recently. Is that cybersecurity is not just install this piece of software or install this firewall. It's a holistic thing that has to be part of your company culture.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with web. I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing. We have so many people that have, especially the big corporations that we work with, they might have 5 or 10 different employees that are posting blog posts, that are, going through and they're checking on comments and administrating to make sure that they're approved, and they're getting rid of other things. But each one of those logins is in itself a security issue if not handled correctly. So that was, it's interesting how many people need cybersecurity training that didn't just 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on your work, what have you seen? Like I think you had a couple examples of actual security incidents that have taken place, and kind of the impact that it caused on the business.
Well, yeah, I mean, even before we hop into the websites, and that's why we love working with you and your team, because you understand the holistic environment that businesses actually work in. And you mentioned domains, which I've been interviewed many times for website security, and it's rare that domains ever come up. But you brought that up in the intro, and that is the main point of the main point of weakness that I see in most companies, where we will get a client that is vetting a bunch of different firms. They like what we do. We'll build them a beta site and they say, okay, you guys are the winners. We're awarding you the contract for our web development services. So one of the first questions that we will go through in our onboarding is, where is your domain? And I cannot tell you how many times, it's probably 30 to 35% of the times that we're onboarding a new client that it takes them a week or two to figure out where their domain actually is. So they're like, oh, is it with GoDaddy? Is it with Bluehost? Is it with domain? Like, they have no idea where it is. And that's a huge threat, not just from a cybersecurity aspect, but even if it's nothing malicious and the credit card that was tied to that expires and you're not getting notifications because you don't know who owns it, your entire website, your email, everything goes down and your business is at a standstill. And then you start that research process trying to figure out, okay, who has it? Did our old website company have it? Did our old, you don't know if it was where it was, and that becomes a really big issue. So a lot of our clients have been with us for a decade or more. And they would trust us to watch their kids for the weekend. We have personal relationships. They know us, but I still tell them constantly, even though, especially with startups, we'll find a great domain for them as part of their onboarding process. And they'll say, okay, great, just buy it for us. We don't want to deal with it. And I've had clients get really mad at me when I tell them that is the one thing I will never do for you. I will sit down with you. You pull your credit card out. I don't want to see it. We will get you set up, but nobody should ever own your domain name, because one of the real security issues that I've seen is smaller web development firms that have gotten upset when they found out they were being replaced. It might have been a family member, an ex-employee. They will forward traffic to a competitor or another less than flattering website, where when people go to that website, you have no control over where they point it, and what actually pops up. So that's the number one thing, is if your domain isn't secure, it doesn't matter what you do on the website side, you're still vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like you said, that domain is not just, oh, this is our website that we hardly use. It like that, okay, that's your website, that's your email. And it could be tied into so many other services that you rely on nowadays, especially with how much we use cloud services. A
Yeah.
lot of things can be tied to that domain. And if it's someone malicious, like you kind of described, a vendor that's acting out because they're being replaced, or a bad actor that hacks into your system and takes it over, that can be damaging to your reputation and your business's productivity.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had a real world example that you and I both saw, and I called you immediately, and you were like, "Yep, I already saw it." Where we both got an email from a company we won't name because it's a rather large one, but we both got an email from them saying, "Hey, if you received an email from us, please disregard it. We're so sorry. We were hacked," and that was on the domain level for email. And it's like, okay, if someone has access to your domain, they can add new email addresses. They can create whatever they want. Next thing you know, it looks like you're communicating with clients in a very secure way. And as you know, the company was very large and had a lot of access to a lot of clients that might have fallen for one of those links or clicked something malicious or given information that they shouldn't have. So, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Your servers can be secure. Everything can be dialed in. Your website can be secure. But if you don't start at the domain level, it's really like adding amazing security systems to your home and never locking the door.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so many pieces of cybersecurity are that way. It's I wish I could say, okay, we're going to install XYZ, we're going to set it, we're going to forget it, and you're good to go. But that's just not the modern age that we live in. That's not how you can be effective against cyber criminals, because they're working just as hard to get into your system as we are to keep them out.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's one of the crazy things too, is it was 2015. I'll never forget it as long as I live, because it was an eye-opening moment for us as well, where we realized that a one-size-fits-all security option doesn't really work anymore, where we had a few of our clients that were really small, that we obviously offer hosting, we offer security, we offer all that. But obviously, as you know, there's a small cost associated with that, because we have to pay for the software that actually blocks a bunch of things. We have to install two-factor authentication. We need servers that are able to detect threats and mitigate those. So yes, it does cost a little bit more than when you are going with one of the major companies that can throw 5,000 small websites that don't get a lot of traffic on a single server and discount that. But most of the time, we would tell our clients, you're probably okay because no one's interested in attacking your small business. You're pretty off the radar. It's okay. But in 2015, when these attacks became automated, that all changed. We had 3 of our clients that took websites off. They told us, we will handle our own maintenance. We will host our own websites, because it was like $6 or $7 a month. And I'm like, hey, if you guys can manage that, that's awesome. And they all have the same story. We have a receptionist, we have an intern, we have somebody who's going to manage the updates to WordPress core, the plugins, all those things. And sure enough, we got a call from 3 different clients on the same day saying, oh my gosh, it's nothing but terrorism videos on the homepage of our websites with a big black screen and text that we can't read. And sure enough, we logged into it and we're like, this theme hasn't been updated in 2.5 years. The core files haven't been updated in 2.5 years. And this really inexpensive host that you have has absolutely no 2-factor authentication. They have no brute force attack blocking. They have none of this. And they said, well, we didn't think we needed that because who would attack us? We're just a small business in the middle of a small town. And sure enough, we start looking into it and yeah, it's automated. Anyone can actually go through and use Google to find outdated scripts that are vulnerable to an injection or, vulnerable to a particular attack. And literally you could just Google that string of vulnerable code and a list of 2,000-3,000 websites pop up. And from there, it's just having fun for them where they're able to inject whatever they want to add to the website, take over, deface, or whatever they want to do. And that was a big eye-opening moment for a lot of our clients, that you don't necessarily need to be the target of an attack to be attacked, since it's all automated now.
Yeah. I mean, these hackers have kind of automated feelers out there, just seeing who they can get into, who's vulnerable, whose data has been leaked that they might be able to take advantage of.
Yep.
And it's after they're in your systems and have already caused some damage that they're like, okay, how big of a fish did we catch?
Right.
Are we going to do more now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's one of the really big things that we've seen happen recently is businesses actually get comments to their website. And we'll see it because we're really lucky because we have so many client sites that we manage. But you'll see a particular comment that looks legitimate. It's something like, great blog post. We absolutely love the content that you post here. We check your site weekly to find, and it's like this big string of words there that we're like, okay, this is interesting that 6 different websites had the same exact content. The top was tailored, the middle was tailored. We're like, oh, someone wants to be able to Google their own comment and see which of these are automatically being put up and indexed, because now all of a sudden they know that Google's indexing those links and they can use your website to build SEO for a client, or they can use all kinds of different means to kind of find that stuff. So keep up with comments is another one of those really key critical things that seems like it doesn't matter, but it actually does, because to your point, when people are putting feelers out there, they'll automate a comment, they'll push that out to the web, and anytime that they copy and paste that code into Google and find that comment, they just got a lot of information about your website, the way that it's being indexed, the way that it's ranked, and kind of helps them to create a hierarchy of targets for themselves. So comments seem like no big deal, but keeping up on those, deleting ones that are spam, getting rid of those and deleting that entire box, that's become wildly important recently. And that wasn't the case 5-6 years ago.
So, and you bring up an interesting thing with the comments. For the average website, would you recommend maybe just disabling comments altogether?
100%. I mean, really, and there's multiple reasons, and cybersecurity is just a small part of that. Unless comments are actually important to your website, if you're running a blog, if you want to be a real knowledge leader and an authority in your field, great. Comments might be good because it allows someone to ask a question. It allows you to have that two-way conversation. But the real big issue is for a lot of the clients that we see that request comments being enabled, they never respond to them. And that does more damage to your brand than good, just because they expect two-way communications to be very quick. We are living in a text message society where if someone leaves a comment, they expect a response back, or else it does damage to your brand. The other thing is those feelers. So 99% of the time, I will say deactivate comments, don't utilize it. You really need to have an entire team available to actually manage those comments. Same thing with chat. Chat can be great for a lot of businesses, but it does more harm than good when people actually add a chat function to the website. Then we will monitor it and we're like, oh, your average time to respond was 12 minutes. That's not what chat's for. Chat is a way for people to bypass the phone tree. They have a quick question they want to answer right now. So for security reasons and, just not doing damage to your brand, I recommend disabling anything that you're not 100% willing to stay on top of.
Yeah, and so I mean those comments, I mean that seems more like if your blog or your news section or whatever, if that is your business, then you
Right.
probably want comments on. But if it's just kind of a side piece, sounds like it's not worth having those enabled.
Yeah, if you're a news website or something like that and you post information to a story and you want to be able to post updates to that or answer questions or allow people from the community to actually add to that story, 100%, that makes total sense. But in those situations, you usually have the digital editor that is able to, edit those comments, approve those. You really need to watch that stuff. I mean, it's really becoming difficult with so many slang terms and ways to get around, filters, to make sure that you're moderating those comments in a way that is not going to do damage to your brand. So unless you have someone on staff that's actually watching that, disable it all. Same thing with plugins. We were talking about chat. Chat is usually run on most websites by a plugin, and most people don't think about the fact that every plugin you add to your website creates one more source of vulnerability. Because you can hack a website via the core files. If you don't update that, you could hack it via the theme. If you don't update that, you could hack it via the plugin packages. So I know a lot of people that are like, man, it'd be really cool. We're a local business. We want local weather on our website. Okay, great. You better update that, because what most people don't realize is when you see a plugin update and then you go and you update it and you don't get any new really cool features or bells or whistles or anything like that, they're like, well, this is pointless. We do all these updates, but we don't get anything really cool and new. Well, when that happens, what basically they did is they either fixed a bug or a security vulnerability. And if you leave that out in the open, it's only a matter of time before someone hits you. And it's just like your mobile phone. I mean, people get so upset about their websites needing to be updated. But same thing, if you have iOS or Android, constantly you are getting updates that you need to do. And a lot of those say immediate release, update this or else. There's a security vulnerability. Websites are built on software too. Servers are built on software. If they're not updated, you're leaving yourself open for a lot of headaches down the road.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've seen there was one particular vulnerability. I don't know, it was last year or something, but all you had to do was when you put in your name, you put in some code into your, the name field that you submit, and
Yeah.
that allowed you admin access into the servers. So, so I mean, it doesn't take a lot of skill from these criminals, really, in a lot of cases, and so that's why, like you said, you need to be updating everything all the time. As these security patches come out, making sure you're staying on top of it, because by the time the security patch is released, if the criminals didn't already know about that vulnerability, now they do. And
Right.
so if you're just waiting to install that update, that gives them all that time to try and exploit it.
Yeah, especially open source software, which is rough because those are some of the biggest platforms on the planet. I mean, WordPress, we can't recommend it enough. It is an amazing platform for websites. It allows almost unlimited expansion. You're really future proofing your business and you're opening yourself up to a lot of tools and features, because if you have, I can't tell you how many times we have a client come to us and they're working with one of the really big website builders, which they do have a place. If you are building a very basic website that is basically, we need to get a PDF that we have in hand that we hand out to clients, we need that on the web. These big website builders are great for that because a lot of the times they patch themselves. You don't have to worry about the vulnerabilities and things like that. But one of the big downfalls is there's not a lot of customization there, because they only use this basic package. So if you want to add a really cool gallery to it, you want to add this really cool before and after slider there, you want to add local weather, you can't do that. So one of the real key features of WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, some of these really big platforms, WordPress obviously is the major. They run almost 40% of the web right now, which means everyone integrates with it. So when we have a client use one of these website building companies, these builders. I'll say this: most hosts offer. Even email platforms are starting to build these really easy websites that you can kind of build in a few clicks. And then they're like, hey, we want to integrate this with our CRM. And it happens to be something like Salesforce or, HubSpot or any of those. Well, WordPress integrates with all those. But these different companies, they have to spend tens of thousands of dollars at least to create an integration for each one of those platforms. So if they don't have a big enough footprint, they're just not going to do it. So big open source platforms like WordPress are amazing. The negative thing is everyone builds plugins for them. So we literally I know I had a conversation with you about a client that we know of that they just kept adding functionality to their website, and that's great. And they kept adding plugins. And by the end of the day, you look at it and you're like, man, this thing is run on like 50 different plugins. And what most people don't realize is you have to vet those plugins as well. A lot of them are free. A lot of them don't have a ton of downloads, but right there in the download repository, it shows you the last time it was updated. So if you see a free plugin that the last time it was updated was 2019, that's probably an abandoned plugin, which you're installing immediately with vulnerabilities in it. And that's another key feature is WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, all these that use plugins, they're great because there are so many of them. But it's really important to vet those plugins to make sure that they're going to be around for a while, make sure that they're secure when you install them, and make sure that should you have to shed a plugin, it's not going to cripple your entire website or a big piece of functionality that you rely on. So that's another big thing is vet your plugins and keep them updated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you said, it's all software at the end of the day. It's all very similar to keeping your computer updated or keeping your QuickBooks updated, whatever it may be. Your website's just another one of those pieces of software that needs to stay up to date. So I'll kind of segue into just one last thing before we wrap up. A lot of clients that we talk with and we get you in touch with them immediately. It kind of, let's see how to word this. The situation comes up where, okay, I just got this new website and I need to just add this function. Can you help me? And so naturally we don't do web design or development or anything. So we get them in touch with you, and it often comes down to, hey, you need to rebuild your website, which stinks if you're one of those clients who just rebuilt it by someone, but there's some really good reasons. So could you talk about that?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we do is it really shocks me how many times we get a phone call from a client in the morning or a potential client, and they say, hey, we're calling a few different firms. We really just want a proposal for a 5-page website. Really needs to just be a homepage and about us. We want a really cool frequently asked questions. We're an architecture firm, so our gallery is really important, and we'd like to be able to toggle between, healthcare, government, whatever it is there, and then our contact page. It sounds pretty simple. And we will tell them, hey, we'll get back to you within the next, 48 to 72 hours with a proposal. We're going to look at your existing website and then also look at the list of things that you want. And they're like, well, we already got the proposals from the other two web development firms that we contacted this morning. Like, why is it taking so long? And immediately that's a red flag to us that they're not doing their research. And what ends up happening is WordPress is an amazing platform. Just when you install it, you're basically at about $20,000 worth of development that it would have taken to get to that free install level 7 to 8 years ago. I mean, it's amazing. The platform is absolutely incredible. However, what really gives your company that unique look and feel is the theme package that you select. And most web development firms, to decrease the amount that they have to spend or increase the amount of gross profit they're able to get back, they'll pick a free theme, and they have a few that they like to use because they're already pretty comfortable with how to utilize it. What we do is we'll spend a good day or two finding a theme package that gives them everything that they want without even having to add a plugin. And that takes some research. We need to make sure that that theme is usually a paid theme. And one of the reasons that it's a paid theme is if we find a free one, what's going to stop that development team from stopping supporting it and from patching bugs and doing updates and fixes? So if you tell us that you're a newspaper, we're going to pick a very different theme than we would if you're an IT company. An IT company gets something very different than a photographer that needs to be able to show their galleries. So a lot of the times when we get a phone call and they say, hey, we just spent X amount of money on our website, We want to add this functionality. We contacted the developer and they said that they can't do it. We're upset. Can you do it? And we start looking at it. We're like, okay, these 3 plugins will get you what you want out of the website. We'll create a development kind of sandbox where we can sit there and play with it off the website, so we're not going to crash anything that they have currently going. And then as soon as we install any of those 3 plugins, the theme and the plugin don't play well together and the site crashes. So at that point, it comes down to the fact that the development team didn't ask enough questions up front. So a lot of the times, a meeting that they spent 5 minutes with someone else on will be a 2-hour fact-finding mission with us, where we say, are you ever planning on selling products? Because we can't tell you how many times a business that didn't plan on going with e-commerce grows to the point where they're like, yeah, man, we have a restaurant. You know, the local restaurant we just redid. We redid their branding, redid everything. Everyone loves the logo so much that now you see it on hats, you see it on t-shirts, you see it on hoodies, you see it on bumper stickers. So now they're like, hey, we want to go e-commerce. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly why we asked you early on, is there even a 1% chance? Because most restaurants will say no. But if you look at breweries and things like that, they almost all sell hoodies, pint glasses, different things to add revenue.
For sure.
And because they said there was a 1% chance they were going to go with e-commerce, we went with a completely different theme than most web development companies would for a restaurant. And because of that, they're not in a situation where they need to rebuild. So just going through that initial research and fact-finding mission allows us to make sure that our clients can hold on to their website for 10 plus years and not have to scrap the entire thing and start over. Whereas someone who didn't ask those questions could get them in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that's why we love working with you, because we see this all the time. You know, there's your one-man shop who just like, hey, I can get you a functional website. But the problem is that just because it works does not mean it's set up properly or it's future-proof. And so you guys take that time to make sure you're going to future-proof it. It's going to be supported by not only you guys, but the developers who make pieces of the software, and that it can stay secure. And so that it makes a big difference, taking that little bit of time to benefit the client in the long run.
100%. Yeah, that's a really key thing. And one thing that I know that you've been pushing with your clients really hard for, things outside the website is really key, and we get a lot of pushback on it. But I want to take this time, like, as a unified front and let people know, okay, 2-factor authentication, it's a pain in the butt. It's not fun. It is another layer. It is another step. But the thing is as not fun as it is for you to do every time you log into your website or email or whatever, wherever this is being installed, it seems like a pain in the butt to you, even though all you have to do is pick up your phone and it will send you an alert that you're trying to log in. It gives you a code. You plug that in. Once you get used to it, it literally takes an extra 10 seconds. But here's the thing. If you were a big target for a big hacker, if people really want to get in bad enough, really one of the main things is how much time can we buy ourselves? That 2-factor authentication is a pain in the butt. It takes you an extra 10 seconds. It might take an advanced hacker, if you did everything else right, an extra 3 weeks to get into your site versus being able to do it in a matter of seconds. We've all seen those really cool pieces of software where you enter your password and it shows you, oh, this password could be hacked within 4 minutes and 28 seconds because it's not uppercase, it's not lowercase, doesn't have different characters and things like that. You add a couple little steps to it, which, yes, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt when you're typing it in there to put the extra characters, the uppercase, the lowercase. But that thing that took you an extra 2.5 seconds every time you log in will take a password cracker an extra 4 weeks to do. So these things are all worthwhile. I've heard you mention it a lot, hardening your systems, hardening your software. That's really all this is. So those little things that might seem like a hassle to you and your employees are a much bigger hassle to potential hackers, which is why they're worth it. So I love that you're sticking to your guns on that and, really pushing that, even though there's always client pushback.
Absolutely. Things are changing and it affects your workflow, in your business. It's just inevitable. But, when you hire trusted advisors to help you through it doesn't have to be super difficult. We can guide you through the process, get you secure, get you still, functional and productive in your business. And you can have a lot more peace of mind knowing that the criminals aren't going to just walk right in the door.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's an interesting fields that we're in because I mean, like you said, there are a lot of one-man shops. There are, companies that aren't used to having to secure big businesses, big websites, and that was one of the things I thought was really interesting when we first joined up with you on a client project. Is you've done HIPAA compliance before. That's a complete different level of security, keeping people's data secure, all of those different things. You've dealt with a lot of different large companies and the different, security requirements that they have to meet by law. So the fact that you are able to apply that to small to mid-sized businesses just gives them a huge leg up, and they're not starting from scratch every single time because you're able to take that template that you utilize for Fortune 500s and apply that to small to mid-sized businesses, which just gives them a huge leg up when it comes to staying secure. So that's huge.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so we're running over time because we could talk all day, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So we mentioned a lot of different tips. If you had to pick just one thing for a business to do today, what would it be?
100%. It is always just keeping your software up to date. And that really expands over everything. That's your website. So and it doesn't take a long time. We tell this to our clients when we send them a proposal and we show them what it will cost for us to actually go through and maintain their website. We let them know, hey, if you want to go with a less expensive option somewhere else, we will actually sit down and do a free training with you to show you how to update WordPress core. We'll show you how to update your theme package. We'll show you how to update your plugins. It's not hard. It just is a little bit time consuming. And when you get that email from your website that a plugin's out of date, you have 24 hours that you need to do that within that time period, because that's when we start seeing it go from a 0 day to just everybody knows it and they're attacking you every day on it. So keeping that updated is really the number one thing. And it's not difficult. We're happy to walk anybody through it, whether they're our client or not. It literally takes 5 minutes for us to do a training that could save them from having to rebuild their website, have downtime, potential lawsuits because their website was doing malicious things to the site visitors. That's really key. But I mean, that expands across everything. That is your phone, your work phone. That's your desktop. When you see, an iOS or a Windows update, those updates aren't just for features and benefits. Those are things to keep your business secure. So if I was going to say that one thing will avoid 80% of the headaches, keep everything updated. When you see that software update, yes, it's a pain in the butt, but don't put it off for 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely not. So yeah, today, if you don't have a regular maintenance policy in place where you're already doing these updates, get in touch with your web developer or whomever manages your website. If you don't have someone already, definitely reach out to Daniel. His contact information is below as well as in the description. But yeah, get that taken care of today. Don't neglect it. A few minutes today can save you a huge headache in the future. So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for your time. It's always great chatting with you and getting more insight to what stuff that you're dealing with on the other side of all this. Yeah, and don't forget, next week, 11:30, we'll be doing another live stream, continuing this conversation. We'll be having Kevin Wells of KW Wealth Management on to talk about the financial side of this and how you can be protecting your investments and other finances. So, all right, thanks again, Daniel. And
Thank you so much. This was fun, man. We'll have to do it again.
all right, we'll see you.
All right, have a good one.